Dear beautiful people, today I want to share a yoga technique with you that I find is quite powerful. I made a video before about how to open the third eye, but a friendly yogi that I know from Nepal showed me this technique, which is actually quite more efficient than how I used to do it. And the reason I want to share this with you is so you have the potential of having access to deeper intelligence. Well, what's that deeper intelligence? Well, that's a complex one, and it's not easy to answer, especially not in words, but what I will try to say is that you exist on many layers of intelligence. So, while you are identified maybe currently with the personality, this is not who you are. Let's say it is a very minuscule part of who you are, a tiny part of who you are. So when we start meditating, what we actually start doing, we start kind of something that we could call peeling the onion. We remove layer after layer after layer, but we're not actually removing it, we're just becoming conscious of it. So in that sense, we're diving deeper, we're moving backwards into source realization, and in that backwards movement, we realize all the other levels of intelligence that are also us, but have been previously out of reach. That means we have experienced them not directly, but they have influenced us from something that we could call the unconscious realm. So when many of you who have been practicing mindfulness or Zen or certain yoga forms of meditation, you might have already had an experience of transcendency. That means that you detach from the thought process, that you detach from the psyche, maybe even detach from the body to a certain degree, and have experienced a certain peace and less identification with what is actually happening. So you're already increased in energy. Still, for many of you, the question is how to actually have access to mystical insight and download information that is not existing within the physical body. For that, we need to open the third eye. The third eye is an organizing intelligence in which, let's say we can use that channel to receive information outside of the physical body that is stored on our layers, on other layers of existence, which also includes memory and abilities and so on. The third eye allows us to develop telepathic ability. This gives us a possibility to receive information directly from the source. Opening the third eye, though, requires a certain basic understanding. So this basic understanding that I'm trying to, let's say, make you remember right now, because everything is known, you see, everything in existence is known to you, you just don't remember it. But let's say what I would like to make you remember is the following thing, that your Zen practice and your mindfulness practice, your ability to be present in the moment is very necessary to develop it, because when you enter the mystical experience, it can get quite overwhelming. When you, for example, experience past life memory flashes or experience telepathy or see things that many as of yet cannot see, it's very easy to get into a state of ego, because suddenly you start identifying with that and create a self-concept from that. So it's very important to simplify your life, to not get pulled into a very strong energetic experience, but to allow them to happen. You see, the Zen and the mindfulness practice make you detach from physical experience, but I also in that sense encourage you not to get caught up into mystical experience either. But in order to remember who you are, at some point you cannot get around entering that type of experience. And for that we need to open the third eye. Now understand that your nervous system is a receiver of information. So when you open up certain chakras, you then in that sense can receive information that previously you couldn't, but that means the following thing as well. Understand that it's like a radio receiver. That means you can receive information from many different sources. In the beginning, if your mindfulness practice is not strong, you might get easily pulled into intelligences that are of a manipulative nature as well. I want to make this very clear. So it's important that your mindfulness base is strong, that you've learned to detach from the ego, because when you enter those experiences, there's also the temptation of being influenced by, let's say, not very benevolent forces. So in order to be able to discern, you need to be detached. There is no reason to be afraid, because ultimately nothing can happen to you, but relatively speaking, you can trap yourself in illusion by being identified with, let's say, certain types of thinking or a self-concept that's being offered to you. You see, you're always being offered identity. And when it comes to, let's say, negative polarized entities, they will offer you identity. For example, if you still have some pride or some old trauma and so on, they might give you thoughts that in that sense support your sense of identity, your sense of illusion, and you start generating those type of emotions. So for that not to happen, your Zen practice needs to be deep. I know this has been quite a big intro, but I find it important to share this information with you before we go to the practical part. So, many yogis and monks learn through hyperventilation to increase in energy. Because when you breathe in rapidly, you take in more energy than you lose at that point in time. You increase in oxygen and so on. So when we do a hyperventilation techniques, we charge up. And when you charge up in that sense, it can open up the third eye. So I'm going to propose 2 yoga techniques right now that you do in a certain order so you can charge up the third eye. So the first one is a hyperventilation technique. Now mind you, I will show you a way of breathing out, and you only need to focus on the breathing out when you do this exercise. The breathing in will happen automatically. It's about suddenly breathing out through the nose, and the breathing in and the breathing out happens roughly within a second. So I will demonstrate it for you. And it might take me a few breaths in order to get there, but you will see how it works when I actually get the correct breathing. Yeah. So I'm going to demonstrate it first, and then at home you can repeat it. Usually you can do it 300 times, and then we move on to another technique. So as you can see, it's a sudden breathing out, yeah? And sometimes, let's say, I would advise to clear your nose before, otherwise you might create a mess. So when you do this 300 times with your eyes closed, after that you move over to another yoga technique. It goes as follows. So you seal off one side of the nose, you keep the other side of the nose open. Now you breathe in through the open side, slowly and gently, seal off both sides, open up the other side and breathe out. Breathe in again. Breathe out the other side. Breathe in again. So, about that, what it does do, it clears a channel in the nose that directly leads to the third eye in the forehead. So when you do the hyperventilation exercise 300 times with closed eyes, and you add the nose, let's say this type of breathing technique after that, you open this channel up. So when you're done with both techniques, you sit down in meditation, and now you only focus on the in-breath. So then you will be able directly, just by breathing in, move the breath right into the third eye, and you will experience stimulation right here on the forehead. If you keep doing this, the third eye will be stimulated, your nervous system will respond, and the brain will restructure the physical connection with the chakra. So in that sense, you open up a channel to be receptive to communication, and this means also communication from your deeper intelligence with, let's say, some people might call it the higher self, but I'm very careful with these type of concepts, because I want you to experience for yourself and not lead you down the path of belief that you create ideas about what's going to happen. Rather be open to what happens and don't create resistance to what happens. Now, with the breathing technique where you seal off one side of the nose, you do it 25 times, and every time you breathe out, that's one counts. Yeah? So basically you breathe out 1, yeah, you go to the other side, breathe out there 2, and you do it all together 25 times. Practice that for a while, and you will feel the stimulation, and you also feel a change in energy. The hyperventilation exercise is also helpful for you in order to heal and an increase in energy when you experience illness, for example, or when you experience overwhelming negative thought. So in that sense, I encourage you to experiment, but at the same time I also encourage you to ground yourself should the mystical experience arise, and you don't lose yourself, but stay patient and calm. Right? So the general thing that, let's say, I've learned in Zen Buddhist practice, and that's something that's very dear to me, is the understanding of not to get too excited no matter what happens. Contemplate about that, have fun experimenting, be well.